You don't rest. You schedule breaks. And even then, you feel guilty for needing them. You track the hours, you plan the calls, you hold every conversation like a script you've already rehearsed. But the moment something slips out of place, your whole body tightens like it's bracing for something no one else can see. You call it discipline. But deep down, you know it's fear. Fear that if you loosen your grip, you'll finally have to feel the thing you've been controlling your way around. Tell the truth. What part of you dies a little when you don't feel in charge? You tell yourself you're just being careful, that staying ahead is how you avoid mistakes, that checking it one more time, is how you make sure nothing slips. But you're not really checking. You're bracing. For what? You're not sure anymore. The disaster? The judgment? The look on their face when something goes wrong and it's your fault, even when it isn't. You've lived like this for so long it doesn't feel like fear. It feels like competence. Until someone asks you to rest, and suddenly you feel naked. Like you're missing something essential. Like stillness is proof of failure. No one sees the rituals, the invisible systems in your head, how you rehearse every sentence before saying it, how you replay every interaction after it's over, how even your silence is calculated. You've trained yourself to anticipate disappointment before it arrives. Not to prevent it, but to make sure it doesn't catch you off guard. You weren't born this way. There was just a moment, too small to name, too loud to forget, when something fell apart, and you promised yourself, never again. You were too young to fix it, but old enough to feel the weight. So you built strategies, silent ones, invisible ones. You became the planner. The one who didn't need reminding. The one who read the room faster than anyone else. Because control back then was the only way to feel less helpless. Now you call it being put together. But inside, it's a constant audit of feelings, of expectations, of how much space you're allowed to take up before it becomes too much. You don't melt down. You manage. You don't cry. You close tabs in your mind, one by one, so no one sees what's overheating. And sometimes you wonder if they even know. That you're not as calm as you look. That your silence isn't peace. It's pressure without release. You've tried letting go, in small ways, a missed task, a messy reply. But the guilt hits like a reflex, not because you did something wrong, but because not controlling it feels like abandoning something you can't name. That's the part you don't say out loud. You don't trust rest, not because you don't need it, but because it strips away the disguise. When you're not doing, you start to feel. And when you feel, you remember how much you've been avoiding. There are days you move through the checklist like a ghost. Everything gets done. No one notices the tremble, but you feel it in your jaw, your neck, your sleep, the way your brain won't shut up, even when your body begs for pause. But here's what no one sees. You can control every variable and still feel like the next mistake is already waiting. You don't feel pride after a perfect day. You feel relief it's over, and panic it might repeat. The applause doesn't land, the quiet doesn't soothe. Even the compliments feel like a test you now have to keep passing. You used to think this was about being better, smarter, stronger. But lately, you're starting to notice the cracks. You're tired, not just physically, but in the kind of way that makes joy feel like another task. You can't remember the last time you did something without calculating its cost. Without running through the timeline, the consequence, the if this then that chain that never ends. It's like every version of you lives in a simulation of control, and none of them ever learned how to just be. And then without warning, it shows up again. A request you didn't plan for. A delay, someone asking you to wait, or worse, to not worry. And you feel it spike. The heart rate, the clench, the loop starting up again before you can stop it. Even when you try to slow down, your brain finds new things to control. New futures to edit, new ways to stay in charge, just to avoid the quiet that follows. Because the quiet doesn't feel like peace. It feels like exposure. You used to think control made you safe, but it's starting to feel like the thing that's quietly breaking you. And here's the part that still stings. You don't even know who you are without the checklist, without the plan, without the tension in your shoulders that reminds you you're still holding something together. You don't remember what it feels like to trust your own mess. And the worst part is, you've hidden it so well, no one even knows you're tired. You've hidden it so well, no one even knows you're tired. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part is that you kept proving it. Day after day, that you're fine, that you're functioning, that nothing's wrong, that you're still in control. And this is where something quietly broke. Because control stopped being a tool. It became your identity, and without it, you didn't know what was left. You weren't chasing peace. You were dodging collapse, filling every moment, every breath with precision, performance, preemptive repair. But eventually, you forget what real rest feels like. Not just the kind that stops motion, the kind that lets you be without earning it. And when someone finally says, you can let go, you don't even know how. Because what do you let go to when control was the only thing holding you together? This is when the silence started to scream. Not loud, just constant. A low hum of dread underneath every task. Not because it's hard, but because it never ends. You check the time, but it's not time you're worried about. It's what happens if you stop. If you sit still long enough to feel the absence of safety. The ache of never being met, only managed. You keep moving, not forward, just moving. Because stillness feels like a risk you can't name. Like being seen. Like being asked something you don't have the answer to. And here's the fracture. You don't know what you're avoiding anymore. Only that the avoidance is safer than whatever's underneath. What if you stopped knowing who you are, but kept pretending you did? What if no one ever really knew you, because you never felt safe enough to show them? What do you do when rest feels more dangerous than exhaustion? You convince yourself this is strength, but it feels like a version of dying that doesn't leave a mark, just slow disappearance. Routine by routine, plan by plan, smile by smile. Right here is where you got used to disappearing. You tell yourself control means stability, but inside, you're just holding the floodgates with a paper dam. Every I'm good, every no worries, every moment you swallow instead of speak, it adds to the weight. You didn't break, you just dulled. Edges rounded off by fear, joy muted by monitoring, connection filtered through caution. And it's not that anyone hurt you. It's that somewhere along the way, you learned to beat them to it. Now you're safe, but numb, stable, but gone. And no one hears the scream you never let out. Not even you. Maybe it was never about control. Maybe it was just the only thing you trusted not to leave. You didn't mean to build your life around it. It just made things quieter, predictable. Easier to hold than the chaos no one ever helped you name. But it's heavy now, isn't it? Not loud, just constant. Like a silence that fills the room before anyone says you can rest. And maybe you've never said it out loud, but some part of you is tired of rehearsing safety. Tired of proving you're okay. Tired of being the one who never drops the thread. You know the feeling, when your body stops, but your mind keeps scanning for things to fix. You've done so much, just to not feel like a burden. But what if you never were? What if you didn't need to hold it all just to be held? And if the control slips and no one flinches, what does that mean? You've lived so long in tension, even calm feels suspicious. But this moment right here, you didn't control it. You didn't plan it. And still, you're here. You don't have to figure it all out. Just don't disappear mid-thought.